With over 2,200 locations worldwide, Panda Express is one of the most successful Asian restaurants ever. I'm sure you love its orange chicken like everyone else, while also arguing if it's authentic Chinese food or not. But that's not what makes it an interesting company to analyze and talk about. What blows my mind is it's still a family company that doesn't have franchises and has not raised a single dollar from investors. That's super rare from a company this size. So, how did Panda Express manage to grow this big without any traditional growth strategies? When I researched its founders, Andrew and Peggy Churi, I found some very interesting insights and philosophies that explain their success. Two founders who complement each other in business perfectly. It's also a classic story of struggling immigrants and how they became successful. So grab your chopsticks and let's dig right in. The story of Panda Express starts in 1966 with its founders Andrew and Peggy Chang. Andrew had a rough childhood. He was born in China, but due to the Chinese Civil War, the family moved constantly in the 60s. First to Taiwan, then Japan, and finally to the US in 1966, where Andrew studied at Baker University, Kansas. This is where he would meet his future wife and co-founder of Panda Restaurant Group, Peggy Churi. Peggy was also an immigrant from Taiwan who grew up in Hong Kong. They met in sophomore year as both were pursuing a mathematics degree. After graduating, Peggy chose a very academic route. She did her master's in computer science and PhD in electrical engineering, something that would contribute immensely to Panda Express's success later. Andrew, too, pursued a master's in applied mathematics, but right after that, he started working as a manager for his cousin's restaurant. He didn't want to go down the academic route, but Andrew didn't last very long in this restaurant. His cousin and he disagreed on a lot of things, and Andrew left after a fight. Now he had learned a few things about the restaurant business and wanted to start his own. Andrew's father was a chef back in China and Taiwan, so he had a head start. They decided to open a small Chinese restaurant called Panda Inn in 1973. It started in a dilapidated coffee house in California with a trailer in the back used as a kitchen. And this was not the Americanized Panda Express you're used to today. It was authentic Chinese food. Initially, the restaurant struggled as Americans were not very familiar with Asian cuisine and the taste wasn't adapted to American preferences. They often had to give heavy discounts to attract customers. But they were able to continue, as they had very little overheads. This went on for a while, but since Chinese restaurants were so rare back then, there was literally no competition, and the restaurant started picking up after a while. Even today, this is true, and Panda Express doesn't have any real competition. They have somewhat become the mainstream Chinese food. After the initial success, they quickly changed locations, and this time it was an upscale restaurant with plenty of sitting space. It became so popular that even in this location, they had to return the customers. Andrew Chang later said, "We had a back door to the restaurant, and I would go into the parking lot and say, 'Thank you for coming, I'm sorry we're crowded, but if you'll wait, I'll buy you a drink.' And such a personal focus on customer service made people very happy." Andrew understood one thing very well from the start. You need to have the best customer service possible. While this was happening, Peggy was working as an engineer at many places. She coded battlefield simulations for the US Air Force and was a software engineer at one point. She used to work a few hours here and there in the restaurant during the weekends, but nothing serious. However, the restaurant started experiencing some serious growth in the early 1980s. So in 1982, Peggy quit her job and became the operations manager for Panda Inn. Peggy truly had the mind of an engineer. She quickly saw many operational inefficiencies and started to make them better. The big break for Panda Inn would come in 1983. During this time, the shopping mall landscape was changing. Developers were looking to turn malls into all-in-one destinations, places where shoppers could not only find a variety of retail offerings, but also dine in and spend leisure time. This shift led to the conceptualization of food courts, a section within malls that house multiple fast casual dining options. In 1983, the developer of the Glendale Galleria, a large shopping mall in Southern California, offered Churi a spot in the mall's food court. But there was a problem. Panda Inn wasn't a fast food restaurant, and the operations were not standardized. But they saw the huge potential of opening the restaurant in a mall, so they agreed. And this is another reason why Panda Express is so successful, their ability to adapt. Both founders had a background in mathematics and had strong analytical minds. Over the next few months, they made a detailed plan to standardize everything and make operations suitable for fast food. For instance, they studied their target market and fine-tuned their menu. While maintaining the authentic flavors that made Panda Inn popular, they incorporated a few Americanized Chinese dishes, and they opened a store in the mall. They specifically named it Panda Express to stress that it was a fast food restaurant. And this is where the Panda Express you know today started. When Panda Express first opened in 1983, it was a unique concept. At the time, most Chinese restaurants in the US were traditional restaurants with expensive menus. Panda Express, however, offered a smaller selection of dishes served quickly over the counter in a food court setting. This was an entirely new concept and made Chinese food accessible to a much larger demographic. It will not be an overstatement to say Panda Express popularized Chinese food in the US. The 1980s were a crucial time for Panda Express. Chinese restaurants were mostly mom-and-pop restaurants run by a small family, and there were no big restaurant chains for Chinese food. And they had the two perfect people to build something like this. Andrew knew the business inside and out, and Peggy brought a unique tech insight to the business. In the 1980s, using technology in the restaurant business was unheard of. Panda Express was one of the first fast food chains to implement a point-of-sale system, which increased its efficiency significantly in every aspect. The stores were opened in very strategic locations as Peggy made very data-driven decisions. She would analyze traffic patterns, office spaces in the area, demographics, and a lot more before opening any new location. While Peggy is the operational genius, Andrew is the visionary who pursued relentless growth to make Panda Express so big. His philosophy of people first is also what made Panda Express's customers so loyal at the start. This would also be the decade when Panda Express made its most famous food, the orange chicken. One of the chefs at Panda Express, Andy Cao, was tasked with making a recipe that was Chinese but appealed to the Americans. After some experimenting, he decided on a sweet and tangy flavor instead of the usual spicy chickens found everywhere, and it was an instant hit. Customers loved it, and this is the dish that got Panda Express a lot of media coverage. Even today, this 26-year-old recipe is the most famous dish, and it serves 110 million pounds of orange chicken every year. So, I guess this settles the debate of whether Panda Express is an authentic Chinese restaurant. It's not, and the founders never wanted it to be. Their goal was to make Americanized Chinese food. Panda Express has not looked back since the expansion started. They opened 300 more stores in the 1990s and also opened their first international location in 1997. In the 2000s, this number rose up to 1,300, and today it's at 2,200. It's showing no signs of stopping anytime soon, especially since their daughters are very involved in the business. One of the most interesting things about this company is how the founders have managed to retain complete ownership and control of the company. They've also not adapted the franchise model. 2,200 stores might seem like a lot, but the number would probably be 10 times higher if they did franchising. So why does Panda Express choose not to franchise? Well, it comes down to philosophy. Andrew Churi believes franchising is unreliable, and there is no way they could maintain the same quality. This is the same reason why Panda Express isn't a public company. The stock market is usually hungry for short-term growth and profits, which Andrew believes would degrade the food quality. Panda Express is also one of the few fast food chains that treat its employees well. Andrew said in an interview, "My job is to develop people. When you have a good set of people, and they're in a good place inside and out, in their livelihood and in who they are, then chances are they will take care of the customer better." And these are not just empty words. It reflects in the company. The company gives its employees subsidized education, discounts to gym memberships, healthcare, and a lot more perks, which is practically unheard of in the fast food industry. Today, Panda Express is one of the largest fast food chains in the world. It has locations in 14 countries and is still growing rapidly. Both Andrew and Peggy Churi are 75, but still very active in the business. Their daughter, Andrea Churi, is the Chief Marketing Officer of Panda Express, and the other daughter manages its investments. So it's still a family business. So what do you think about Panda Express? Are you a fan of this commercial fast food? Comment down below what you think of Panda Express and its founders. Stay tuned for next week's adventure. Intellectual Digest